Hello everyone, my name is John Bussart. I'm an HP Solution Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions from HP. In this series of videos, we're going to explore the 3Par StoreServ line of products. And what I plan on doing is showing you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within the 3Par management console. Today we're going to talk about virtual copy, which is certainly a snapshotting technology, meaning that I could have a base volume and take a virtual copy of it, kind of freeze how it looked in time, and then the changes would get written to these individual virtual copy spaces inside the storage system. And then I could create another virtual copy off these virtual copies within the environment. All right, so this is a space-efficient way of doing snapshotting technology, but we still have a lot of flexibility within the infrastructure. So for example, say I'm going to do a deployment of Windows 2012 to 10 different servers. What I might do traditionally is I might create a base volume off a single server, do all my patches and updates and whatever base information I needed according to my organization. And then I might take that base volume and clone that off 10 times to present each one of those volumes to 10 different systems. So if you think about it, what I've done is I've taken exact copies of that base volume and presented that to the system. So that's a lot of storage space that gets eaten up for identical information that's within the infrastructure. With virtual copy, I can take that base volume and take 10 different virtual copies of it. So kind of use that one base volume and create 10 virtual copies off that, and those virtual copies I could present to 10 different systems. And then off those virtual copies I could create other virtual copies or other snapshots. I could kind of tree out my information, right, to a great degree. Right. If for some reason my base volume needed to get updated, so maybe some Microsoft patches came out for 2012, I could actually go into that base volume and update it with all the latest information without having any effect on any of the other virtual copies or snaps that have been created within this infrastructure. And then if I had another Windows Server 2012 deployment, I could just take that base volume, create another virtual copy, and present it to another system, and it'd have all the updated information in it. Right, so that's kind of summation of virtual copy. So let's take a look at what this looks like inside the 3Par management console. Okay, here's the management console. What I'm going to do is quickly create a virtual volume. And we'll give it a name of base. We'll make it about 100 gigs. And I got to assign a policy to it as well, so we'll use the mid-tier in my infrastructure. For virtual copies, I need to assign it a copy CPG, so a different policy for how these blocks of information are laid out in the infrastructure. So I'm going to choose the fast policy for this. I'm going to click Next and then Finish. Right, and then I'm going to export this to a system. Right, there's my base volume. I'm going to send it out to this System 1. I happen to actually be remoted into that system right now. So let's open this system up here. That'll be this guy here. So let's open up the drive management and let's rescan for this disk. It hasn't shown up yet, so let's try again. Okay, so there's our volume. Let's initialize the disk. And we'll format it on out. Should only take about a second or so. Okay, so we have our volume available. So let's go into this volume now. Let's create some data. We'll call this base data. And all systems need this information. File, we'll save this file here. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go back over to my base volume and I'm going to unexport it. Okay. And then on the system itself, I'm going to rescan to make sure that this volume doesn't doesn't exist anymore. Alright, while that's happening, let's go back to our management console. Let's make some virtual copies off this base image. So I'm going to right click, create a virtual copy. Right. You could give it a destination name, which could be of a certain format. I'm actually going to do a user defined one, and we'll call this virtual copy system 1. Right. If I expand out base, we'll see this virtual copy created here. We're going to create another one off the same base. Okay, we're going to give a user defined name. Call it virtual copy system 2. Let me see, we have these 2 virtual copies that are created. And now I'm going to export these to 2 different systems. So right click, export, move forward. This virtual copy system 1 we'll give to system 1 over here. And this virtual copy for system 2 we'll give to system 2. Okay. Now I'll go into each one of these systems. I've remoted it into each one, and we'll do a rescan of the disk. This is the other system we're working with. Let's rescan again over here. It's not showing up just yet. Alright, there's our 100 gig volume over here. And there's our 100 gig volume over here. We better bring this guy online. Alright, so that volume's available. Alright, so let's create some additional data on this new volume. So there's our base data. Info system 1. And then we'll do the same thing on system 2. Okay. So we've created some additional data on each one of these systems. So let's go back and create another virtual copy. Create another virtual copy. So call this virtual copy 2 for system 1. Notice how this virtual copy shows up underneath the initial virtual copy. Again, we'll create another virtual copy here for system 2. Alright, so we see we've got 2 snapshots or 2 virtual copies off our base virtual copies. So certainly I can go into this infrastructure now and go look at this data and then delete it. And we'll empty it out of the recycle bin as well. And we'll do the same thing on our secondary system. Again, empty it out of the recycle bin. All right, and then we could actually promote or revert these virtual snapshots if we felt like it. So what I'll do is I'll go over here, I'll unexport the volume. I like to unexport my volumes just to make sure that there's no writes at all happening to the volume. All right, and I'm going to go into each one of these systems and make sure that they can't see that volume. So I'm going to do action, rescan disk. over here as well, I'm going to do an action and rescan disk. Right, so these virtual volumes should vanish. So what I can do now is, if I right click on this, I can do a promote virtual copy. So look what I can choose. I can actually choose the base volume as well as the virtual copy for system 1. So I'm going to promote it to this point here, and we'll click OK. I'm going to do the same thing for this snap, or this virtual copy. Let's make sure that each of our systems can't see their volume anymore, so this guy can't, as well as system 2 cannot. So we'll go back and we'll export this guy. Alright, so this one goes to system 1. And then this guy will go to system 2. Okay. We'll go back up and we'll rescan for these disks. Let's take another scan again. It's not showing up right away. And there's our volume. And then if we look at the data on that volume, we're able to successfully recover that volume. This is kind of what you expect out of snapshotting technology, right? There's our data from over there. Right, but I could change things to the base image if I felt like it. So we'll say that what I'll do here actually is I'm going to go over to this system and I'm going to unexport this volume from the secondary system right now. So we'll say we want to make changes to the base volume. What I can do is go over in here, I'll make some new data. And this is system 1, this volume that's attached to system 1. And we'll say more base data is needed. More important. So more important information for all systems. So file, save. All right, so I got some additional information that I want to make available for all systems. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to this volume now, and I'm going to create another snapshot of it, or another virtual copy. All right. I'm going to call this virtual copy 3 for system 1. You notice we have another virtual copy that shows up underneath this. So now what I can do is right click on this and then promote this virtual copy. So first we're going to export this, unexport this guy. Make sure the system doesn't see that volume. I'll go back inside this interface and we're going to right click. I'm going to select promote virtual copy, and this time I'm actually going to promote it to the base. So I'm going to click OK and then yes. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll take this base virtual copy and then I'll export this to that same system that we were working on. So system 1. And we'll go back into that volume and we'll rescan the disk. Try that one more time. Yep, there's our volume. And we'll go look at that base image now, because that's what's exported to the system. We can see that more data, this more data file is there. But now I can go back to this base file and actually export. I could create another virtual copy, and we'll call this one, say we're going to deploy a new server and it needs this information. Let's say this is virtual copy underscore system 3. Click OK. You see we have another virtual copy, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to export this to our secondary system. There we go. And then finish. All right, and then we'll go look inside the secondary system. We'll rescan the disks. Do that one more time. There's our volume. It's offline. We'll make it online. But if you notice, we go into it, we've got all that same information. So I was able to promote different virtual copies into the base image without affecting any of the other images that exist in the environment. Any of the other virtual copies exist. These all exist at the same state that they were when I export them in the infrastructure. So it's very flexible, dynamic, doesn't use a lot of space, snapshotting technology. They just happen to call it virtual copy. Inside a 3Par storage system, but they call it that because it definitely is a little bit more than snapshotting technology for your customer's infrastructure or for your infrastructure. So I hope you found this video useful, and stay tuned for other videos.